Most women assume the secret to lasting love is giving more of themselves. They believe they need to be the first to reach out, always make time, constantly reassure, and endlessly prove how much they care. But the women who leave the deepest impression on a man usually do something very different. They protect one powerful boundary that quietly changes the way he sees them. That single decision can shift you from being someone he simply enjoys spending time with to someone he genuinely fears losing. For years, you've probably been told that love requires endless sacrifice, putting another person's needs first and giving without limits. Yet that advice often leads to disappointment rather than devotion. The truth is, what creates lasting attraction isn't how much you're willing to hand over. It's knowing what you will never compromise. This isn't about manipulation or pretending to be someone you're not. It's about understanding a psychological principle that naturally increases emotional investment. In this video, you'll discover the boundary that naturally magnetic women maintain, often without realizing how powerful it really is. It's the difference between being appreciated and being deeply valued. Stay with me until the end, because I'll explain why this approach works, how to apply it without creating unnecessary distance, and why this simple shift doesn't just attract one man. It changes the way confident, emotionally mature men respond to you. So take a moment, put away distractions, settle in, and keep an open mind. What you're about to hear challenges many common beliefs about relationships, but once you understand the psychology behind it, you'll begin to see love through an entirely different lens. One of the biggest misunderstandings about love is believing that constant closeness automatically creates stronger feelings. Many women think that sharing everything, always being available, and making themselves completely accessible will naturally deepen a man's emotional connection. It sounds logical, but attraction often develops differently than people expect. The reality is that emotional investment usually grows through anticipation, effort, and a sense of meaningful pursuit rather than unlimited comfort. Men often become more attached when they feel they are building something valuable instead of simply receiving it with little effort. Human nature tends to place greater value on opportunities that require patience, consistency, and commitment. Think about the men you've seen who are deeply captivated by a woman. More often than not, she wasn't constantly rearranging her life to fit his schedule or removing every obstacle from his path. She had her own priorities, her own purpose, and clear standards that naturally encouraged him to step forward and earn his place in her world. Psychology describes this as the scarcity principle, where people assign greater value to things that feel meaningful, limited, and worth working toward. As a man invests his time, attention, emotional energy, and consistent effort, his own mind begins reinforcing the belief that the relationship matters. The more he chooses to invest, the more valuable that connection becomes in his eyes, strengthening the emotional bond in a way that effortless availability rarely accomplishes. The deeper truth goes far beyond the idea of simply being pursued. What truly matters is what happens inside a man's mind while he is choosing to pursue you. Every time he makes an effort to earn your attention, respects your expectations, or willingly rises to meet the standards you've set, he's investing a little more of himself emotionally. That investment changes the way he views the relationship. People naturally place greater value on what they've worked hard to build, and relationships are no exception. This is why constantly making yourself available or removing every challenge rarely creates lasting attraction. It's not because those women lack value or deserve less love. It's because they've unknowingly skipped the very process that encourages emotional attachment to grow. When everything is instantly accessible, there's little opportunity for appreciation to deepen. But a woman who protects her time, honors her own priorities, and refuses to abandon her standards creates a healthy sense of anticipation. She naturally becomes someone worth pursuing, someone whose presence feels earned instead of guaranteed. That subtle shift changes the emotional dynamic completely. It transforms simple attraction into genuine admiration and creates the kind of emotional investment that grows stronger over time. The mistake many people make is assuming this requires acting distant, unavailable, or manipulative. It doesn't. It simply means recognizing your own worth and refusing to sacrifice it for temporary approval. In the next part, you'll see exactly how to apply this mindset in a way that draws emotionally healthy men closer instead of driving them away. There's an uncomfortable reality about relationships that many people never talk about. Most love stories don't begin falling apart because the feelings disappear overnight. They slowly unravel because one partner gradually loses themselves while trying to hold everything together. In many cases, it's the woman who starts adjusting every part of her life around the relationship. She rearranges her schedule, ignores her own needs, puts aside personal goals, and constantly prioritizes his comfort, believing that giving more of herself will inspire him to love her more deeply. Unfortunately, the opposite often happens. As she slowly disconnects from her own identity, the relationship begins losing the balance that originally created attraction. This isn't because the man is uncaring or incapable of commitment. It's because the relationship starts communicating something unhealthy without either person realizing it. When someone makes another person the center of their entire emotional world, it creates enormous pressure. Instead of feeling appreciated, he may begin feeling responsible for her happiness, her identity, and her emotional stability. That responsibility can feel overwhelming rather than romantic. Healthy attraction grows when two complete people choose each other, not when one person slowly disappears in an effort to be loved. Protecting your individuality isn't selfish. It's one of the strongest foundations for building a relationship based on mutual respect, desire, and lasting emotional connection. Try looking at the relationship through his eyes for a moment. The version of you that first captured his attention wasn't someone who revolved around him. It was the woman who had a fulfilling life, meaningful friendships, exciting ambitions, and interests that lit her up. He admired the fact that you had your own direction and still chose to make room for him in your life. But over time, without even noticing, that balance may have started to change. You began turning down opportunities just to stay available, put your own goals on hold, and focused more on his world than your own. Little by little, your identity became wrapped around the relationship. Ironically, the more you made him the center of everything, the less he experienced the woman who originally fascinated him. The confidence, independence, and purpose that first drew him in slowly faded into the background. In their place was someone who seemed to rely on the relationship for a sense of completeness. Deep down, most people can recognize the difference between genuine love and emotional dependence. Love is a choice shared by two whole individuals. Dependence, on the other hand, places the weight of one person's happiness entirely on the other, and that can quietly change the emotional dynamic in ways neither person intends. This explains why so many relationships begin with excitement only to lose momentum later. Many women blame themselves when a man starts creating distance, believing they must have made a mistake. Yet often they were simply following the advice they'd always been given. They gave endlessly, loved without limits, and consistently placed his needs ahead of their own. While those actions come from a caring heart, they can unintentionally remove the balance that keeps attraction alive. Healthy relationships need space for individuality, curiosity, and mutual appreciation to continue growing. Without personal boundaries, everything becomes predictable and emotional energy gradually fades into routine. There's another consequence that's even more important. Every time you ignore your own needs, accept treatment that doesn't reflect your values, or make yourself smaller to avoid conflict, you slowly weaken the respect you have for yourself. That inner confidence influences the way you speak, make decisions, and carry yourself, and people naturally respond to it. When someone genuinely values themselves, others are more likely to value them as well. Lasting relationships are built on two people who respect both each other and themselves. That kind of respect only exists when healthy boundaries are present. Boundaries that quietly say, "I care deeply about you, but I won't lose my identity in the process." Once you truly understand that principle, everything begins to shift. You stop measuring your worth through someone else's attention and start recognizing it from within. That inner confidence naturally changes the energy you bring into every relationship, and that's where real transformation begins. One of the biggest misconceptions about boundaries is that they're meant to shut people out or keep them at a distance. In reality, healthy boundaries do the exact opposite. They create the conditions where trust, respect, and lasting love can grow. A boundary isn't a form of rejection or control. It's a clear expression of what you value and what you're willing to accept in your life. When you honor your own limits, You quietly communicate that your time, energy, and emotions matter. You show that a place in your life isn't automatically given. It is built through consistency, respect, and genuine effort. Surprisingly, this doesn't discourage emotionally healthy men. It often inspires them. Most people want to feel that what they've earned is meaningful. A man doesn't want to believe he was chosen simply because he happened to be there. He wants to know that your decision came from genuine admiration and that he met the standards of someone who respects herself. By refusing to settle for less than you deserve, you aren't making love harder. You're creating the opportunity for someone to show up with intention, maturity, and commitment instead of expecting effortless access to your heart. Think about the things you value most in your own life. The accomplishments that make you proud usually required patience, discipline, and persistence. The trust you've built with people didn't appear overnight. It developed through repeated actions and consistency over time. Relationships follow a similar pattern. Emotional connection becomes stronger when both people willingly invest in building it together. This is why women who maintain their own identity often leave the strongest impression. They care deeply without abandoning themselves. They give generously while still honoring their own needs. They welcome the right person into their lives without making themselves endlessly available to everyone. Healthy boundaries also create something many people overlook: emotional clarity. Instead of leaving someone confused about expectations, they provide stability and direction. A partner understands what earns trust, what strengthens the relationship, and how to contribute in a meaningful way. But perhaps the greatest benefit has nothing to do with attracting someone else. Every time you protect your standards, you strengthen your self-respect. That self-respect naturally builds confidence, and confidence quietly influences the way you speak, choose, and love. It's a cycle that supports both healthy attraction and emotional security. The principle you're about to discover isn't complicated, yet it serves as the foundation for every balanced relationship. Once you begin living by it, you'll notice the biggest transformation isn't simply in how others respond to you. It's in how deeply you value yourself, and everything else begins to change from there. The principle is simple, yet it has the power to completely change the way you experience relationships. Never place someone at the center of your life if they consistently treat you as an afterthought. At first, it sounds obvious, but living by this standard is very different from simply agreeing with it. Many women unintentionally pour their time, attention, and emotional energy into a man who hasn't shown the same level of commitment in return. They rearrange their schedules to fit his, put their own plans on hold whenever he calls, and continue investing long before he has earned that level of trust or priority. This boundary is about matching effort instead of constantly exceeding it. If he reaches out occasionally, you don't feel pressured to chase him with constant messages. If he only makes plans when it's convenient for him, you don't sacrifice your own commitments to make yourself available. If he treats the relationship casually, you don't respond by making him the most important person in your world. This isn't about keeping score or trying to punish someone. It's about allowing actions to determine the level of access a person has to your life. When you stop overextending yourself, something important happens. He either recognizes your value and begins investing more consistently, or he naturally drifts away because his interest was never strong enough to begin with. Both outcomes protect your time and your heart. The man who steps forward shows that he values the connection enough to nurture it. The one who disappears simply reveals that he was more interested in convenience than genuine commitment. Either way, you gain clarity instead of confusion. This boundary doesn't only change how a man responds, it changes the relationship you have with yourself. The moment you stop making someone your entire focus when they haven't earned that place, you reclaim that energy for your own life. You begin investing in your goals, friendships, passions, health, and personal growth instead of waiting for someone else's attention to determine your happiness. That shift creates a quiet confidence that people naturally notice. A woman who enjoys her own life carries herself differently. She isn't desperately searching for validation because her sense of worth already has a solid foundation. That confidence makes her more engaging, more fulfilled, and far more attractive than someone who revolves around another person's approval. She becomes intentional with her time, selective with her energy, and thoughtful about who receives her attention. Her presence feels valuable because it isn't available without purpose. The result is that she naturally attracts people who are willing to meet her with the same level of effort and respect she offers them. Healthy love is never one-sided. It grows when both people consistently choose one another. When you expect mutual investment instead of accepting emotional leftovers, you stop settling for partial commitment and begin creating space for a relationship built on reciprocity, appreciation, and genuine partnership. The greatest transformation happens when you begin putting this principle into practice. If a man truly values you but has become comfortable, he'll often respond by becoming more intentional. He'll communicate more consistently, make thoughtful plans, and show through his actions that he doesn't want to lose his place in your life. If, instead, he becomes defensive or complains the moment you stop overgiving, that reaction reveals something equally important. It shows he was benefiting from your lack of boundaries rather than building a balanced relationship with you. As you continue honoring yourself, you'll notice changes beyond that one connection. You'll have more emotional space for the people and opportunities that genuinely enrich your life. Friends may notice you're happier, your confidence will grow, and you'll reconnect with interests that once brought you joy. Perhaps most importantly, you'll become open to relationships with people who naturally value consistency, effort, and mutual respect. By refusing to accept being treated like an option, you quietly invite into your life those who are ready to make you a true priority. There is one important thing you need to remember if you're going to live by this boundary. It only works when you're consistent. You can't hold your standards for a few days and then abandon them the moment he gives you a little extra attention. Healthy boundaries only become meaningful when they're part of who you are, not something you switch on and off depending on how someone behaves. A man who genuinely respects you needs to see that your standards are stable because they're rooted in self-respect, not in testing or controlling him. This principle has nothing to do with withholding affection, acting distant, or trying to make someone chase you. It's about creating balance. A healthy relationship is built when both people contribute emotionally, support one another, and invest with equal intention. No one should carry the entire relationship alone while the other simply enjoys the benefits. When both partners consistently choose each other, resentment has no room to grow because the effort is shared. Appreciation remains alive because neither person takes the other for granted, and respect naturally becomes the foundation of the relationship. Lasting love isn't created by endlessly sacrificing yourself. It's created by two people who willingly continue choosing one another every day. The right man won't be discouraged by your standards. On the contrary, he'll value them because they'll remind him that your attention is meaningful, your trust is earned, and being part of your life is something worth protecting. As you begin living by this principle, you'll start noticing small but important changes. One of the earliest signs is greater consistency. Instead of hearing from him only when it's convenient, you'll notice more thoughtful communication and a genuine effort to stay connected. Rather than making last-minute plans, he'll begin respecting your schedule because he understands your time has value. You'll also see a difference in the effort he puts into the relationship. Conversations become more meaningful, plans become more intentional, and he pays closer attention to the details that matter to you. These aren't signs of manipulation. They're natural responses from someone who recognizes that meaningful relationships require care and commitment. Respect also becomes more visible. He asks instead of assuming, considers your feelings before making decisions, and treats your priorities as equally important as his own. Perhaps the clearest sign is that the pursuit becomes mutual. When you stop carrying the entire relationship by yourself, the right man naturally begins contributing his share. He reaches out because he wants to, creates opportunities to spend time together, and willingly invests emotionally because he understands the value of what he's building. Before we finish, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Which part of today's message resonated with you the most? Before you leave, I want you to remember something that is easy to forget when you've spent years trying to earn love. Real love is never something you have to chase by abandoning yourself. It isn't a reward for sacrificing your peace, ignoring your needs, or proving your worth over and over again. The healthiest relationships are not built because one person gives everything while the other simply receives. They are built because two people willingly choose each other every single day. That choice is made through respect, consistency, honesty, and mutual effort. The moment you begin believing that your value doesn't depend on how much you can do for someone else, your entire approach to relationships begins to change. You stop asking, "How can I make this person love me?" And you begin asking a far more powerful question: does this relationship allow me to be fully myself while feeling respected, appreciated, and emotionally safe? That single shift changes everything because it moves your focus away from earning love and toward recognizing whether love is being offered in a healthy way. Many people spend years believing that if they just become more patient, more understanding, more forgiving, or more available, eventually someone will realize their worth. But genuine love doesn't require you to convince another person that you're enough. The right relationship doesn't grow because one person endlessly proves themselves. It grows because both people continuously invest in one another. A relationship should feel like two people walking toward each other, not one person running while the other stands still. If you constantly feel like you're carrying the connection on your own, that isn't a sign to try harder. It's a sign to pause and honestly ask whether the effort is being returned. You deserve a relationship where communication flows both ways, where emotional support is mutual, where your presence is appreciated rather than expected, and where your kindness is valued instead of taken for granted. Those aren't unrealistic expectations. They're the basic ingredients of a healthy partnership. The boundary we discussed today isn't about becoming emotionally unavailable or pretending not to care. It isn't about creating artificial distance to make someone chase you. Those strategies might create temporary attention, but they rarely create lasting love. Healthy boundaries are rooted in authenticity. They allow you to love deeply without losing yourself. They remind you that caring for another person should never require abandoning your own dreams, your friendships, your purpose, or your emotional well-being. The strongest relationships are formed by two complete individuals who choose to walk beside each other, not by one person disappearing into the life of another. Your independence is not a threat to love. It's one of the qualities that allows love to remain healthy over time. The more connected you remain to your own identity, the more balanced and fulfilling your relationships become. Remember that not everyone will respond positively when you begin honoring yourself. Some people become uncomfortable the moment you stop accepting less than you deserve. They may question your boundaries, accuse you of changing, or expect you to return to old patterns that benefited them. Don't mistake that discomfort for evidence that you're doing something wrong. Often, it's evidence that you're finally doing something right. Healthy people don't fear healthy boundaries. They appreciate them because they understand that mutual respect creates stronger relationships. The people who truly belong in your life won't ask you to shrink yourself so they can feel more comfortable. They'll celebrate the fact that you know your worth and encourage you to keep growing into the person you're meant to become. As you continue applying this principle, you'll notice something remarkable. You'll stop feeling anxious about whether someone likes you enough. You'll stop overanalyzing every message, every delay, every mixed signal. Instead, you'll begin paying attention to something much more important: whether someone's actions consistently match their words. You'll become less interested in chasing potential and more interested in recognizing genuine effort. That shift brings a level of peace that many people spend years searching for. Confidence doesn't come from knowing everyone will choose you. It comes from knowing that you'll no longer choose relationships that require you to betray yourself. If today's message resonated with you, I want you to make one promise to yourself. Promise that from this day forward, you'll stop measuring your value by how much attention someone gives you. Promise that you'll protect your peace as fiercely as you've protected other people's feelings. Promise that you'll stop settling for inconsistency when you're capable of building something rooted in trust, respect, and genuine commitment. The relationship you deserve begins long before you meet the right person. It begins the moment you decide that your own happiness, dignity, and self-respect are no longer negotiable. I'd also love to hear from you. Share your thoughts in the comments and tell me which part of today's video spoke to you the most. Have you ever found yourself making someone your priority while feeling like only an option in their life? Or have healthy boundaries completely changed the way you experience relationships? Your story could encourage someone else who needs hope today. If you found value in this video, don't forget to like it, subscribe to, and turn on notifications so you never miss our future conversations. Here, we explore the psychology behind love, emotional attraction, healthy attachment, and the habits that create relationships built to last. Not just relationships that feel exciting in the beginning, but ones that continue growing stronger with time. And finally, remember this: You were never meant to earn love by becoming less of yourself. The right person won't ask you to sacrifice your identity in exchange for affection. They will admire your strength, respect your boundaries, encourage your growth, and feel grateful to share life with someone who knows her own worth. So keep protecting your peace. Keep honoring your standards. Keep building a life that feels meaningful with or without a relationship. Because the woman who values herself never has to beg to be valued by someone else. She simply creates the kind of life where the right person naturally wants to become a meaningful part of it. And when that happens, love is no longer built on fear of loss. It's built on mutual choice, mutual respect, and two people who wake up every day grateful that they found each other. Is there a boundary you've been afraid to set, or a relationship pattern you're finally ready to leave behind? Your experience could encourage someone else who is facing the same struggle. If this message gave you a new perspective or reminded you of your own worth, consider sharing it with someone who could benefit from hearing it as well. And if you're enjoying these conversations, subscribe to and turn on notifications so you don't miss future videos exploring relationship, psychology, emotional attraction, and the habits that create healthy, lasting love. Above all, remember this: you are never asking for too much when you're asking for mutual respect, consistency, and genuine care. The purpose of this boundary isn't to become someone different. It's to stop shrinking yourself for people who fail to recognize your value. Your story isn't defined by what didn't work in the past. It begins the moment you decide to value yourself as deeply as you've always valued everyone else. When you make yourself a priority, you naturally create space for someone who is ready to do the very same.